Hey everyone, welcome back to In a Pinch. I'm Chris, and today we're talking about Lundgrens Perforated Portion. I've decided that from now on, with Swedish words that I'm not reasonably certain I'm pronouncing at least close to correct, I'm just going to translate them. So what I would guess is perforerad, but I'm certain is not, translates to perforated. So Lundgrens Perforated Portion. Alright, camera's focus again. Lundgren's Perforated Portion is what we're talking about today. Oh, excuse me. So, Lundgren's is really taken off in popularity. I first heard about this some time ago when Sip Upper Lip did a review of this and the Skånebit, which I think I pronounced correctly, the Skånebit. At the time, it was only available on Snus 24. Ergo the ugly white paper warning that will not come off the can without leaving residue. So in his review, he mentioned it as being a tobacco-centric. My ears perked up. It sounded fantastic, so I ordered a gang of it, and I've gone through a gang of it. This is my last tin. This is real quick. I think we're a little more than halfway through the side-by-side or tandem reviews that Ian and I are doing. So he also uploaded at the same time a review of the same product. Link to his video will be in the bottom. And I kind of take for granted. He mentions in his videos that you should come over and subscribe to me. I don't think to tell you guys you should go check him out and subscribe to him, because he's been around for so much longer than me. I just kind of assume that if you've heard of me, you've heard of him. But if you haven't somehow, check him out. His channel is great. I've been watching it for a good while now, and it's a great channel. And he's a great guy, and what you see is what you get with him. So check him out. Link in the description. Anywho. So yeah, originally it was just available on Snus 24, and then Snus Central got their hands on it, and I want to make a request to you guys as far as the stores. I mentioned for talking about pricing and availability, Snus 24 and Snus Central in my videos. I do that because those seem to be the two most common sites for people like myself in the States to order from. I know there's others, there's Buy Snus, Northerner, Snus Line, Top Snus. But what would be cool is if you guys either in the comments here or in my email, which is always in the description, boxandpipe@gmail.com, or in whatever thread I pasted, the link that you found on Facebook, if you could tell me what stores you guys order from within the States, South America or Canada, or throughout the EU, so I can put a list together and get a wider spread of availability and pricing. I'd really appreciate that. I'd like to offer as much information as I can. So now available on Snus Central and Snus 24, and I'm going to guess with how popular it's getting, whoever doesn't have it yet will soon, if it's legal to import in your country. This stuff, there are very few snoozes in portion format that I could use all day long, but this is one of them. There's some snoozes, and this is why I've held off on doing a review of this, even though it's probably my favorite. No, it's definitely hands down my favorite out of all the snoozes I've ordered since coming back to it. The reason I've held up on doing a review is because sometimes flavors are so nuanced in things sometimes, and I've noticed this more with cigars than anything else, where the overall effect is so good that I don't want to stop and think about all the constituents. I don't want to stop and pull it apart and say this and this and this are going on. Sometimes I just want to be able to enjoy the whole, because if my mind gets too far out there with all the little things going on, it's actually so much that it'll kind of ruin it for me. One such cigar is my favorite cigar, the My Father's No. 3 Crema. The overall effect is so good and so unusual that I don't want to stop and pull it apart. Which is rare for me, which means that if I come across a product like that, it means it's really, really good and stands out over everything else. In the Lundgrens line, all I have tried is a perforated portion. I want to try the Skånebit for sure. I'm curious about the, and I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm going to say pre-baked. I'm curious about it, but a pre-baked portion kind of takes out a lot of what I like about loose in the first place. So I'm kind of torn on ordering that. If I knew that I could crumble the pre-baked portions back into loose to bake myself, I would definitely want to try it. If this specifically were available in a loose format, just a not pre-baked nothing, just a 42 gram tin of loose, there would not be a snooze on the market to beat this, to my taste. Anyways, all that aside, let's get into the description. So first the can, because there's a lot to say about this can, though I'll keep it brief. The little guy on the side wearing a hat like the one you guys have seen me wear in a lot of videos is my smoking hat, and the on the black background with the what would you call that, copper, not letterhead, but the copper background to the black lettering. Everything about this is just classy. Everything about it is just classy. And one thing that I want to point out, I mentioned before my OCD, with cans, once I break them, usually you're breaking through graphics that are shared between the side of the can and the side of the lid. And so with my OCD, when I put a lid back on, I'll sit and twist it until they match again. With this, the lid and the can are totally separate graphics, so I don't have to do that. And I know it's trivial, but to me it's really appreciated. It's one less thing I have to think about with my mind that just doesn't stop. I've already mentioned the bureaucratic graffiti on the side. This one did not have the warning on top as law requires for import, but because of circumstances, things that went down over the last few days, Snooze24 is now also putting the same paper labels on the lid, which may be the reason I never order from them again, because they're already, they just don't come off. And then on the back you have all the same things that you would generally have on the back of the tin, with one thing I would like to focus on later on in the video. Inside, oop, there's portions in here, that's gross, I'm going to take that out for you. Okay. Inside you have a nice roomy catch lid with, I'll take the lid off to show you. They do something here that no one else has done yet that I also hope catches on. They call it the Flex Lock lid. In the bottom, it's made of rubber and pushes in to accommodate more portions. And as I've gone through these cans, I have verified that you can go through the can and fit the entire can worth of portions in that lid. Because, you know, as you keep taking portions out, it makes more room in the can, and this will just stretch to accommodate. And to accommodate the pressure coming up, the hinge lid, which I usually am not a fan of the hinge lid, actually locks into place and holds all that pressure down. So I thought that was kind of cool. The portions themselves are, as you can see, and hopefully the camera will pick this up right, you can see look at the screen. Focus. There we go. You can see the little holes in it, as the name implies. It is perforated. The material itself is really soft. The portions, being original portions, are quite moist. Really even more moist than most original portions. If I squeeze it, and I'm not going to do it on the video, but if you squeeze it, you can take your fingers away and they'll be covered in brown goop, which is kind of gross, but kind of cool too. Velvet soft, almost spongy material. The portions don't feel super plump, but throwing them on the Digi, they're 1 gram portions and consistent 1 gram portions. Now I don't know if you guys caught, I don't remember what I was reviewing, but I reviewed something on my channel where I talked about inconsistencies in the weights, and then in the video that Ian and I did side by side that's actually posted on his channel, again, the link's in the description, I couldn't stop going off about how inconsistent the weights in the Angle Home were. I mean, they varied by up to a quarter of a gram. These are consistently 1 gram portions. The cans consistently have 24 portions. 24 1-gram portions. They don't feel that plump because they are heavy, but they're good sized portions that, if you notice, the portion itself, and I doubt that the camera's going to pick it up well for you, but it's a little bit wider, which means that 1 gram flattens out over a larger surface area, which means more exposure, which means better nicotine and flavor. Anywho, let's talk about the tin note. So in the tin, I get, in this order, smoke, pine, and not pine wood, but pine needles, sea salt, and lemon. And the sea salt, that's kind of cool. It reminds me of when I used to live in Ensenada in Baja Norte in Mexico. From the end of '02 to from the end of '01 to the beginning of '03. Ensenada is kind of placed interestingly geographically. So you're on the coast, so you got the ocean right there. But 10 miles to the east of you, you have the desert. So depending on which way the wind blew, it could feel like you're living in the tropics or Northern California. On the cooler days, if you went down to the ocean at night, there was a smell in the air, that sea salt smell. And the only other tobacco product I've ever come across where the scent of that is high enough to be noticeable was actually an old mill snuff called Marlin Spike. If any of you guys had tried Marlin Spike, there's a very similar sea salt note in this. It's delicious. So I have a portion in right now, and it's been longer. It's been in longer than I intended it to be, because the first time I tried to record this, it glitched. I'm uploading a video at the same time, which actually I should check on. 86%. Yeah, right now I'm uploading by request, portions versus loose, pros and cons, and a quick hand baking. So if you guys haven't checked that out, check it out, because some of you guys were asking for it. So it's going up right now. Since I've gone through so much of this, I'm not going to go away and come back after I've gone through this can, because I've gone through quite a bit of this. I made some notes, sitting down and really focusing on the little parts of everything that's going on over the course of the last can and the first 2 portions out of this can, which is my last can, which is sad. So I'm just going to do this in one take. So that was the tin note. I have one in my mouth right now, and the flavors evolve as follows. When you first put it in, the first thing you get is black pepper and buckwheat honey. Now, I don't know how common buckwheat honey is, but I know that we can get it locally at the farmer's market in the summer. This company, Double D's Bees, which is based, I think, out of Wisconsin. Buckwheat honey is, if you can imagine, molasses, but a little bit sweeter. Like, just too light and sweet to actually be called molasses. That's what buckwheat honey tastes like. It's really good on granola and in coffee and tea. In small amounts, because it is very much like molasses, so it's easy to overdo. But that's what I get when I first put it in, is black pepper and buckwheat honey. Going into 5 minutes, it really just starts exploding, and the black pepper really just fills your whole mouth, which means good, bold, dark tobaccos were used in this. The buckwheat turns more into a molasses. The sweetness is still there, but it's not a sugary sweetness at all anymore. It's a natural, earthy, savory kind of sweetness. Along with that comes earth, chopped wood, pine needles. If you can imagine taking the smell of pine needles and turning that into a taste, that's what you have. And I don't know if it's so much a mouth taste of pine needles, but as it rises into your sinuses, you get pine needles and fresh chopped wood, and something herbal that I can't quite put my name on. 10 minutes on, the flavors continue to grow, and at this point, the black pepper is the predominant taste, along with the smoke, which means that, again, bold, dark tobaccos were used in this, which I really appreciate if you can't see the excitement on my face. The herbal, the unidentifiable herbal taste and the sweet kind of start to come together to create this vague savory taste. Savory is not something that I have found in the snus yet, which is what really excites me about this stuff, and it's the thing I didn't want to pick apart and look for the little constituents. But at the 10-minute mark is when the the herbal, the unidentified herbal taste and that sweetness come together and start to create this savory taste, which could be described, this will sound weird, but as dried elderberries if they were tangy. We have dried elderberries. It's flu season. My wife made some elderberry syrup to help prevent us from getting sick, and I have put elderberries in tea before. So those are dried elderberries, and these were the sorry. If you guys didn't see in the video that's uploading right now, I'm playing around with camera angles, so sorry, I've been using the same angle for the last year. But anyways, pretty spot on. If you were to make this tangy, that's what the fruity note that's starting to come out as. I don't get anything floral, personally. I know that enough people who have reviewed and talked about this snus before mentioned something very floral. I don't get that. But what I do get, everything that I mentioned, is phenomenal. And at this point, the snus is pretty salty, but with the savory and the smokiness and that big earthy sweetness, the saltiness actually really works with this stuff. 15 minutes in, the pepper starts to fade. Let me put this elderberries back in the bag. At the 15-minute mark, the pepper starts to fade, and the overall experience is predominantly savory. There's a little bit of the sweetness and the smoke remaining. It's still pretty salty, but the salt's kind of starting to fade along with the pepper. And again, it's mostly savory. At the 20-minute mark, the smoke and the salt are both almost entirely gone, and it leaves you with just a savory, sweet, earthy, woodsy flavor that is definitely good any time of the year, but especially now that winter's coming. Winter here in the Midwest gets very cold, and this winter I think is going to be especially cold, and something like this is just warming. It's I'm not going to do the thing where I ramble on for 10 minutes about the flavor I can't describe, but it's incredibly good. After 20 minutes, that savory kind of flavor starts to slowly fade over the next 20 minutes after that, leading up to the 40-minute mark. And if you just leave the portion alone, that's about where the flavor fizzles out. However, if you take the portion out with your tongue, nibble it a little bit, and put it back in the other side, you're pretty much back at the 15-minute mark again. And one of these portions, flavor-wise, can last up to an hour, which tells me that although I know flavors were added to this, predominantly the flavors are coming from the tobaccos used, which means that somebody was very adept at blending tobacco. Now, I mentioned I wanted to go back to something on the can, and here's where we're going to talk about flavorings. Because just before doing this video, I figured out what it was that was reminding me of elderberry. If you look at the ingredients, and I'm hoping I can get the camera to focus. So I pull it back and slowly forward again. There we go. Alright, so the ingredients, I'll translate them for you. Tobacco, water, salt. The E1520 is sodium carbonate, which would be your alkalizer, and the E500 is your glycol, which would be your humectant. Then the last two flavors translate as salmiac and flavoring, which means that there's not salmiac flavoring used in this, but actual whole herbal salmiac. Salmiac, the flavor could be described as licorice without any of the sweetness, like a rooty, non-sweetened black licorice. Pretty unobtrusive on its own. There are a lot of salmiac snoozes out there, but they feature salmiac and a salmiac flavoring, not just whole salmiac, like this would imply. That separated by a comma and then flavoring implies that it wasn't salmiac flavoring used, it was actual salmiac. So then knowing that, going back smelling these dried elderberries, that's where I was getting that. That's where I was getting the dried elderberry scent. I've never had fresh elderberry, so I do not know what those taste like. But knowing what salmiak tastes like and knowing what these taste like, that's where I was getting at. So overall, this is a wonderful snus. Like I was saying, each can comes consistently with 24 1-gram portions. It's rated as 8% or 0.8 milligrams per gram, which means 0.8 milligrams per portion. I was talking in an earlier video about the chemistry behind snus and alkalinity and nicotine, free-base nicotine. This original portion hits more like a low-end Stark portion. It hits more like if it was a 10 or 11% snus. The nicotine all is relatively quick, and honestly, within 10 minutes, you've gotten all the nicotine you're going to get out of it, but you just don't want to take it out because the flavor is so good. I'm looking over my notes to see if I missed anything. Oh, yeah, I meant to mention early on. So Lundgrens is a relatively new line, at least to those of us on the international market, but it's put out by Fiedler and Lundgren, who are also responsible for the Granit line. So if any of you guys are familiar with and fans of the Granit line, same people. Snus 24, Snus Central has this for $2.93 a can or $24.88 a roll. Snus 24 has it for $2.69 a can, no breakdown for the roll, so it's $26.90 for a roll. So if you're looking at just those two stores, and again, please give me feedback about stores. But if you're looking at just those two, if you're going to order individual cans, it's cheaper to do so at Snus 24. If you're going to order it by the log, it's cheaper to do so at Snus Central. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I hope I didn't come off as being overly excited, but it's good stuff, and I'm glad to finally reviewed it. I can't wait to see what Ian has to say about it. You should check it out too. Links in the description. God bless you guys. Salud.